Hey there, folks. It's Friday, April 11th, 2025. Welcome back to Just a Dude in the News, the segment on Just a Dude podcast, where I break down what's happening across the country in a way that keeps it real. I'm Nathan, your host, just a guy trying to make sense of the headlines with you. Today, we're covering the top 10 news stories in the United States from April 4th to April 11th, 2025. It's been quite a week, with trade debates, protests, economic updates, and some heartfelt moments. So settle in with your coffee, or whatever you're sipping, and let's get started. First up, we've got President Trump shaking things up with some bold tariff moves. On April 2nd, he rolled out plans for a 10% tariff on most imports and a massive 145% on goods from China. By April 5th, Canada and Mexico got a break from the main tariffs, which calmed some nerves. But the announcement still set ripples through global markets, with folks worrying about a potential trade war. Then, on April 9th, Trump hit pause on some of those tariffs for 90 days. And let me tell you, the stock market loved it. The S&P 500 had its best day since 2008, but China wasn't sitting back. They responded with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods, calling the U.S. moves a bit of a stretch. It's like a high-stakes chess game, and everyone's waiting to see the next move. Now, this isn't just about numbers on a screen. Economists say these tariffs could bump up prices for everyday stuff like electronics, clothes, and even toys. Farmers are feeling uneasy about losing foreign markets, and industries like steel are gearing up for challenges. The administration says it's all about boosting American jobs, but critics argue it's a gamble that could hit consumers hard. So, where do we stand? It's a bit of a waiting game at this point. Markets are swinging, and the global trade picture is murky. The story's got legs, and it's going to affect how we shop and work for the months ahead. Keep an eye on it, because it's far from over. Next, let's talk about the energy in the streets this week. Starting around April 7th, thousands of people marched in places like Washington, D.C., protesting a range of Trump policies, from tariffs to immigration to health agency changes. These were some of the biggest demonstrations since the second term began, and they showed how much passion is out there right now. The vibe was intense, but mostly peaceful, with crowds carrying signs, chanting, and sharing their message. Social media amplified it all, with hashtags like StandUp2025 trending big time. That said, it wasn't one-sided. Some counter-protesters showed up, supporting the policies and saying it's time for a shakeup. It's a clear picture of a country with a lot on its mind. What's fueling these rallies? Many feel the tariffs and budget plans lean too much toward big business over working folks. Others are concerned about proposed cuts to health programs, especially after announcements on April 9th. The crowds were diverse: students, union workers, small business owners, all voicing their worries and concerns. It's a mix of perspectives, really. At the end of the day, this is people engaging with what's happening. Will it shift policy? That's a big question. For now, it looks like more rallies could be coming, so expect this conversation to keep going. I'd love to hear your thoughts on X about what's driving this protest. All right, let's get into something that hits your wallet. On April 10th, the Consumer Price Index came out, showing inflation dropped to 2.4% in March, down from 2.8% in February. That's the lowest in 6 months, thanks to a 6.3% drop in gas prices. Sounds promising, but there's a catch. Those tariffs we mentioned might stir things up. Here's the breakdown. Food prices ticked up 0.4%, and eggs, well, they're a tough one, up 5.9% from last month and 60.4% from a year ago. On the bright side, shelter costs eased a bit, only up 0.2%, but international tourism to the U.S. fell 12% last month, likely tied to trade tensions. It's a sign folks are being cautious. Now, those tariffs are the wild card. They could push up costs for things like gadgets and groceries. Some analysts say inflation might climb back toward 3% or more by summer if trade issues heat up. Others think that the Federal Reserve could step in with rate cuts, but that's not a sure thing. The economy's holding steady, but it's got some question marks. For now, it's smart to keep an eye on your budget. Things look decent today, but with tariffs in play, we could see some shifts. Stay sharp out there, and maybe hold off on splurging until we know a little bit more. Here's a story that really hits home. On April 10th, Ksenia Karolina and others landed at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland after a prisoner swap with Russia. This follows a major exchange in August 2024 that freed Paul Whelan, but getting Carolina back was a big moment for families who've been waiting for good news. Carolina, a dual U.S.-Russian citizen, was detained in Russia on charges many considered unfair. The swap's details are under wraps, both sides are keeping it quiet, but it clearly took some serious diplomatic work. The White House is calling it a step toward protecting Americans abroad, though some argue these deals might encourage more detentions. It's a complex situation. For the families, it's all about relief. You can imagine the emotions, reunions full of tears and smiles. But there's a bigger picture. With tensions high over Ukraine, some worry about the long-term risk of these swaps. Still, the scene at Andrews was uplifting, with flags waving and cheers as the planes touched down. Looking ahead, there are still Americans detained overseas, and each case is a challenge. For now, let's celebrate those who made it home and keep supporting efforts to bring others back. Big respect to the folks working quietly to make this happen. All right, if you've got any skin in the stock market, this week was a ride. It started rough after Trump's tariff news on April 2nd, with the S&P 500 dropping 3.5% by April 8th. Then, on April 9th, when some tariffs got paused, the market went wild. The Dow climbed nearly 3,000 points, and the Nasdaq jumped 12%. Traders were calling it a historic day. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. By April 10th, stocks dipped again as China hit back with their own tariffs. On the flip side, some sectors did well. Bitcoin mining stocks like Mara Holdings gained 16%, and airlines like Delta saw boosts after solid earnings. Discount stores held steady too, as folks braced for tighter budgets. What's behind the swings? Uncertainty's the name of the game today. Investors don't love surprises, and the tariff back and forth kept everyone guessing. Some say the pause shows flexibility, while others think it's just a breather before more turbulence. Either way, it's been a week of big wins and some nerves. If you're invested, hang tight. The market's tied to trade news right now, so it's worth staying in the loop. Volatility, like this, isn't for everyone, but it's definitely keeping things interesting. Let's see where it goes next. Time for something a little lighter. The 2025 Masters started on April 10th in Augusta, Georgia, and it's already delivering. Scottie Scheffler, last year's champ, is chasing a rare back-to-back win, something we haven't seen since Tiger Woods years ago. The course is looking sharp, and the competition's heating up. The crowds were all in, cheering for stars like Rory McIlroy and Jon Rahm. But some lesser-known players like Will Zalatoris are making noise too. Rain made some things tricky for a few holes, adding some extra drama. Fans are loving it though, packing the stands and soaking in the springtime vibe. Beyond the green, the Masters is a big deal economically. Merchandise is flying off shelves, and TV ratings are strong. That said, Augusta's catching some heat for its exclusivity, with calls for more openness in its membership. It's a tradition, no question, but it's not without debate. Still, the golf itself is top-notch. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just tuning in for the highlights, the Masters brings it. I'm hoping for a tight finish on Sunday. Who are you rooting for? Drop me a line on social media and let's talk golf. Back to policy now. On April 9th, Trump announced a major overhaul of health agencies, including cutting a CDC unit that slashed black lung disease among coal miners. The part of a push to streamline government, but it's got people talking. Some in support, others not so much. That black lung program was a lifeline, dropping cases significantly. Now, miners and their communities are wondering what's next. The changes also touch vaccine research and funding for certain diseases, though details are still coming in. The administration says it's about efficiency, but critics worry it could weaken public health. This news tied into the protest we mentioned earlier, with health workers and unions joining the marches. They're concerned about jobs and the system's ability to handle things like recent measles outbreaks. On the other side, some argue the agencies needed a refresh to cut waste. It's a debate with a lot of layers. This hits close to home for anyone tied to these programs. It'll be worth watching how Congress responds and whether these changes stick. Healthcare's always a big topic, and this move just turned up the volume. Even Hollywood's not immune to this week's drama. With U.S.-China trade tensions climbing, the film industry's feeling the squeeze. On April 10th, reports highlighted how tariffs could hurt studios, since U.S. movies make about 10% of their box office in China. That's serious cash at stake. China's 125% tariffs might include films, and there's talk of stricter limits on American releases. Big players like Disney are rethinking strategies while smaller filmmakers are really struggling. Plus, the cost of gear like cameras, often made in China, is creeping up, which doesn't help. This is affecting more than just profits. Some producers are looking to shoot in places like Canada to avoid the mess, but that's a big shift. Crews are facing uncertainty and projects are getting delayed. It's a tough spot for an industry that's already navigating a lot of changes. Next time you're watching a movie, this might cross your mind. The trade war could shape what we see on screen and how much we pay for it. Hollywood's got to adapt, and fast, to keep the cameras rolling. Let's talk science for a moment. On April 8th, a report from the National Security Commission on Emerging Biotechnology warned that the U.S. is slipping behind China in biotech. They're pushing for $15 billion in research funding and some policy tweaks to stay competitive. This isn't just about labs, it's about jobs and global influence. China's been investing heavily in things like gene editing and vaccines for years. The U.S. still has an edge, but it's not guaranteed. The report says we need to train more scientists and speed up approvals to keep up. It's a wake-up call because biotech's tied to everything from medicine to national security. This sparked some buzz in tech circles, with companies and universities weighing in. Some see it as a chance to boost innovation, while others worry about the cost and red tape. Either way, it's a reminder that science is a global race, and nobody's slowing down. For us regular folks, this could mean new treatments or tech down the line, but it's also about staying ahead in a fast-moving world. I'm curious to see how this plays out. It's one to watch for sure. Finally, a health story that's got people talking. This week, the CDC reported a spike in measles cases, with clusters popping up in several states. By April 10th, the numbers were higher than last year, linked to vaccine hesitancy and some international travel. It's a reminder that old diseases can still cause trouble. Health officials are urging folks to get vaccinated, especially kids, since measles spreads fast and can be serious. Communities with lower vaccination rates are hit the hardest, and schools are stepping up with clinics. The good news, most areas have the tools to contain it, but it does take effort. This comes at a tricky time. With those health agency changes we mentioned earlier, some worry about resources being stretched, while others say it's a chance to focus on what matters. Either way, it's got parents, doctors, and local leaders working overtime to keep things under control. Public health is one of those things we don't think about until it's urgent. If you've got questions about vaccines or what's happening in your area, check with your doctor or the CDC's website. Let's keep this one manageable, folks. And that's a wrap for this week's Just a Dude in the News. We've covered a lot, from tariffs and protests to golf and global biotech. It's a lot to take in, but that's why we're here, breaking it down together. Thanks for chilling with me, and if you've got thoughts on these stories, hit me up on social media or hit my email. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep it real. This is Nathan, signing off.